Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the battleground state of Virginia, a state in which the governor election has recently moved into the toss-up column according to Cook Political Report, in which tonight showcased the final debate between the two candidates, Terry McAuliffe, the former governor of the state, and businessman Glenn Youngkin. This race has become a lot more competitive than initially thought, and many people on both sides of the aisle are very much anticipating what the final results will be. And every single debate and every single moment matters from here on out, as in just around a month, the election will actually occur, and we will see how the state of Virginia decides between Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe. Now, if you're wondering why I'm making so many videos about this, it is because we are building up right into the election season. We are getting very, very close to getting our first understanding and our first glimpse of what 2022 might be. 2022 is still up in the air as to whether or not the Republican Party will have a wave or Democrats will be able to hold out and push away the Republican Party's advancements. Overall, though, looking at 2022, a lot of it can be told from the lens of 2021 and our special and regular elections. Just as 2017, with the narrowing up of significant amount of congressional races for the GOP, indicated ultimately the Democratic Party takeover of the House in 2018, 2021 might provide us some context in a very similar manner. So with this Virginia gubernatorial race, it deserves a lot of attention because it truly is one of the few and only truly competitive races that we will be covering for the next foreseeable future. And it should hold a lot of information about 2022. But as you can tell from the title of this, it says that vaccines, abortion, and Trump dominate the final Virginia governor's debate. And we can actually take a look at what was discussed individually and what Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin did in terms of exchanging comments on the debate stage. Pretty much, Terry McAuliffe started off on the offense, saying that President Trump was close with Glenn Youngkin and loved him in the fullest degree, and says that the Republican, referring to Glenn Youngkin, is, quote, bought and paid for by the former president. But Glenn Youngkin, instead of pushing off that attack or trying to say that, yes, he is the Trump candidate, fired back, saying that there was, quote, there's an over and under tonight on how many times you're going to say Donald Trump, and it was 10, and you just busted through it. Let's have Terry McAuliffe versus Glenn Youngkin, and let's let Virginia voters decide who they want their next governor to be. End quote. Glenn Youngkin essentially pushing away from that rhetoric and that narrative and saying that voters should decide between Youngkin and McAuliffe, not Trump and McAuliffe. He points out the fact that President Trump is not on the ballot, and he does so for a good reason. President Trump, the last time he was on the ballot, only received 44% of the vote. In addition, he lost by 10.1%, the largest margin we've seen for a Democrat since 1944. So when you see why Glenn Youngkin used this as his method, instead of attacking President Trump, what obviously would have pushed away a lot of the key supporters in the rural area for Glenn Youngkin, instead of making a poor move, he actually made a good one. He pointed out the fact that Terry McAuliffe was running primarily on the platform that he was running against a Donald Trump-endorsed candidate. And while it, of course, is something that would work in a state like Virginia, calling it out isn't too bad either. I think that Glenn Youngkin definitely made some major point here by saying that he should not be mentioning President Trump more than this amount of times, and 10 does seem very excessive. And the fact that Terry McAuliffe had expanded beyond that definitely is a point of interest, and also bringing it back to the centralized idea of a normal race instead of involving Donald Trump is something that will definitely help Glenn Youngkin, regardless of whoever's saying it. And then you take a look at some of the comments that Glenn Youngkin made in reference to President Trump. Well, he sort of put himself in a difficult position with this question from the moderator Chuck Todd, saying, if President Trump wins the Republican nomination in 2024, will you support him? And of course, he says, if he's the Republican nominee, I'll support him. Now, he doesn't say much about coming out in support of him in the primary. I think that's something that would really hurt Glenn Youngkin overall, and this doesn't help him either. Any type of association with President Trump and Glenn Youngkin, of course, will not be beneficial in a state in which Donald Trump lost by over 10 points. But regardless, I do think that Glenn Youngkin does need to be careful, or not regardless, in addition, I do think Glenn Youngkin needs to be careful when invoking the name of the former president, because either he can make Democrats and independents angry, or he can make President Trump angry. And I'm not entirely sure which one would be better for Glenn Youngkin in his re-election bid. Obviously, neither of them are good, but I'm saying which one would be better by comparison. And then you actually take a look that the issue of the coronavirus is resurging as we see the Delta variant and a number of other variants ravaging across this nation, hospitalizing more people than ever before, giving increasing COVID testing and COVID metrics and whatever it might be. Of course, we have vaccinations, which clearly are working. As you can see, that over half this nation is fully vaccinated, and there are very few breakthrough cases. Very few. across this nation. But of course, with the vaccine, you can still catch COVID-19, just it makes it a lot less likely and is a safe and effective way to prevent hospitalization and death from COVID-19. But the point is that Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin have different positions on the vaccine and COVID-19 restrictions. Terry McAuliffe says that he's running against a candidate who has actually been spreading anti-vax rhetoric across the Commonwealth. And then Glenn Youngkin responds by saying, no, I just personally think that it should be a personal choice. I do believe in the right to choose when it comes down to the vaccine, but I do encourage getting the vaccine. So Glenn Youngkin is actually making some pretty strong points in terms of the way that he acts because he knows that he's behind. He understands that the implications of all of this could be used against him. What he says with the vaccine could truly hurt him either amongst the rural, more conservative base or the more pro-Democrat independent base. Point is that Glenn Youngkin is acting like a politician in a time in which he needs to act like a politician. When he was caught up in a number of scandals over the past couple of months, that definitely did not help him. And I think he's trying to do everything he can to obviously win over voters, but also put back together his reputation that was otherwise, in a sense, botched by a number of scandals that proved to be to his detriment, that we saw his numbers dip as a response to, and questions arising in response to as well. Abortion, mask mandates, etc. And then you take a look at the question of education, crime, and the economy. When you take a look at a couple of other things, pretty much Glenn Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe are standardly against each other, as you might expect from a Democrat versus a Republican in the race. And did this debate change absolutely anything? Well, it doesn't seem so. The political betting market, which are typically very reactive and very responsive to what you see on the actual debate stage, these will allow Republicans or Democrats to fluctuate up and down depending on a certain debate performance. Well, looking at the Virginia gubernatorial race, you can see here that Democrats have not fluctuated. In fact, yesterday they were at 76 cents for a yes share, and today they stand at 76 cents. So you can see that actually the Democratic Party has been hovering at a very similar amount for quite some time now. Republicans have not made any type of major gains over the past couple of months. So while the numbers may have shown that Virginia was getting closer, people still widely expected the GOP to win that race. But if you take a look at Virginia's electoral history, it is quite fascinating to say the least. Taking a look at the change from 2000 until, let's go ahead and compare here, 2000 versus 2016, I mean, you can see exactly how much the change is in this state. The state of Virginia shifted 18 points in favor of the left relative to 2000, that election. 18 points more left-wing, which is why this governor's race is also one that was already in Terry McAuliffe's bag, already in Terry McAuliffe's column before it even began. Of course, it's possible that he loses. That is always within the realm of possibility. But the reason why he was in that advantage is because in 2013, Terry McAuliffe defied expectations. He won with President Obama in the White House. Typically speaking, in the state of Virginia, you will have someone in the governor's mansion that does not represent the incumbent party. Terry McAuliffe was the first one in quite some time to actually end up winning here. It says the first gubernatorial race since 1965 in which no one won an outright majority of the vote. And let's go ahead and see. In every single Virginia gubernatorial race from 1977 to 2009, the political party of the president at the time lost the election, even when the state of Virginia has strongly voted for the president in question. So 2009, for instance, went to the Republicans by nearly 20 points. 2005 went to the Democrats. In 2001, also went to the Democrats. In 97, went to the GOP. In 93, went to the GOP. In 89, went to the Democrats. In 85, went to the Democrats. In 81, went to the Democrats. 77, went to the Republicans. So it seems that, quite literally, it told you from here on out that there was this trend, but it is quite fascinating. And the one person to break it after over 40 years of this being a trend, of this being a normalized part of the Virginia gubernatorial race, the one person to do it is the same person on the ballot in 2021. And we can actually take a look. Looking at the debates and the race between McAuliffe and I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that name. I'm not even going to try for the sake of not doing it wrong. But you can see that in the polling data, Terry McAuliffe actually had a pretty significant lead and actually ended up only winning by around 1-2 points across the state. So despite this overwhelming lead, in fact, on election day, he maintained an 11-point lead, in some cases a 6-point lead, a 7-point lead, a 7-point lead, an 8-point lead. The margin for Terry McAuliffe over his Republican opponent was extremely significant, but the results ended up being pretty close. But then the opposite happened in 2017, in which this race, while sure, went to Ralph Northam by 9 points. The polls only showed that Ralph Northam was going to win by 3 points. It's a very big difference there. 3 versus 9 is a very significant one and does need to be understood and acknowledged, because it could indicate that in 2021, Virginia could go in a different direction, even if the polls may suggest that Democrats will be able to win in this race. So looking at the state of Virginia, looking at the polling numbers now, Virginia is inevitably getting closer, and this new debate might actually add to it. Because while there may not be a direct response on a website like PredictIt, the voters definitely did respond to the initial debate in favor of Glenn Youngkin. Of course, it's always up to opinion as to who actually won the debate, but Glenn Youngkin definitely held his own in that first ever debate, in which it did seem to change a good amount of public opinion in the state of Virginia. But when you take a look at what Donald Trump is saying about Glenn Youngkin, one thing that you might have noticed is that Glenn Youngkin does not like to closely associate himself with President Trump. Well, President Trump is warning Glenn Youngkin that if he wants to win, he has to fully embrace the Make America Great Again movement. That's what Donald Trump is saying that Youngkin has to fully embrace the MAGA movement in order to win. It reminds me a lot of what Donald Trump said about Ed Gillespie, saying that Ed Gillespie, while sure was able to work hard, did not do enough in order to win the race. Saying, quote, Ed Gillespie worked hard but did not embrace me or what I stand for. Don't forget, Republicans won 4 out of 4 House seats, and then with the economy doing record numbers, we will continue to win, even bigger than before. Those 4 out of 4 House seats were referring to the special elections, I believe, but point is, or the regular election here, but point is that President Trump attacked Ed Gillespie right after this election, saying that he did not do enough, saying that the Republican Party should have embraced him, that Ed Gillespie should have embraced him. Instead of reflecting and acknowledging or not even speaking on the race, he pivots blame not to his deteriorating approval rating at the time, but onto the lack of enthusiasm and the fact that looking at the numbers here, looking at the comments, that Ed Gillespie had not clung on to President Trump enough so that it would be a good result for Ed Gillespie. I mean, the point is that he was trying to say Ed Gillespie lost because he didn't embrace me enough, the same way that rhetoric was utilized in the 2020 Senate elections in the state of Georgia. I mean, I cannot tell you, for instance, how many times I've seen people, including President Trump, try to argue that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock only won in these races because the Trump supporters were not inspired. I think that is far from the opposite. I think, in fact, Donald Trump may have pushed away more voters than he gained for these candidates. And when you take a look at the shift from 2020, right, quite literally in the regular election, we can see here the shift from November, almost every single region shifted towards the left. In the more special election one, the shift from November, again, almost every single region shifted towards the left, largely in part due to the fact that voters had pushed away from President Trump, had pushed away from the Republican Party, and I think that's what Glenn Youngkin is trying to avoid at this point, to be closely associated with President Trump. Even if Terry McAuliffe wants to send out mailers, even if Terry McAuliffe wants to make the argument, at the end of the day, it is entirely up to Glenn Youngkin as to whether or not that endorsement is something he is still proud about, or whether or not he wants to become the next Donald Trump. It doesn't seem like he does. It does not seem like he is willing to work with President Trump on this initiative the same way that Ed Gillespie wasn't. But they could have very similar fates, and Donald Trump will absolutely jump on that opportunity. In fact, he already has, saying that Glenn Youngkin needs to take advantage of the Make America Great Again movement, or he simply won't win in the state of Virginia. But he knows better. Glenn Youngkin absolutely knows better. He knows, looking at some of these results, that the Democratic Party won Virginia not because of some type of improvement for Democrats here. You know, the reason why you're looking at the state of Virginia, the reason why Democrats were able to win here was partially and primarily, actually I would say, because of President Trump and his unpopularity. This is why Glenn Youngkin is pushing away. When I see this 10.1% margin as a Republican looking at it from that perspective, I would be scared. I would be worried. I would see this and push myself away from the race, because you simply know that it is just going to be very difficult to end up winning. But you also cannot deny that Virginia has certainly gotten closer over the past couple of weeks. It has gotten to a narrower position, and now you see Virginia in the lean Democratic column, occasionally the toss-up column. While I don't know if toss-up is the best characterization, I can absolutely see why it only earns a lean characterization given the state's recent narrowing up, and it also might indicate a red wave in 2022 if the Republicans are able to win in Virginia, or it comes down to an extremely close margin. Because for a state that went to Joe Biden by over 10 points, it should not be that close whatsoever. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2021 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.